In the last few videos, we've talked about the different types such as numbers, strings, booleans, null, and undefined. And in this video, I want to show you how you can do comparisons between all of these different values, such as greater than, less than, equal to, and so on. So let's get started. We're just going to do numbers first. We'll create a variable a equal to 1 and a variable b, which we're going to set equal to 2. And if we want to do down here, console log, we want to check if a is equal to b to see if 1 is equal to 2. Hopefully we're going to get false returned because obviously that's not true. So how would we check that? You may think we just put a equal b, but if you remember correctly, a equals b is how we set a equal to the value of b. We don't actually want to redefine the variable a to have the value of b. We want to check to see if the variable a currently has the same value as b. So to get around that in JavaScript, we just write two equal signs. We have two equal signs together like this. What it says is check the value on the left, in our case a, and see if it is the same as the value on the left, b. Now when we save this, we're going to get false being printed out because a is not equal to b. If we change b to be equal to 1, which is the same as a, now we get true being printed out because a is equal to b. If we wanted to check to see if a is not equal to b, if you remember back to the Boolean video, you remember that we put an exclamation point in front of a Boolean to switch it from true to false or from false to true. Well, we can't quite do that here, but what we can do is change this from having two equal signs to having an exclamation point and then an equal sign. This is essentially saying we want to check that they are not equal to one another. So when we save this, we're going to get false on the side, but if b was 2, for example, we're then going to get true. And likewise, if we change this back to equals here, we're going to get false. And if we change this back to 1, we're going to get true. So this exclamation point is essentially just doing the opposite of two equal signs. It's checking to make sure they're not equal. Let's put b back to 2. And now instead of checking to see if a is equal to b, let's check to see if a is less than b. Well, we can really easily do this by using the less than symbol. We just put the less than symbol in here and it'll say is a less than b. We save and you can see it is true because a is less than b. We can check greater than and we're going to get false being printed. It's the same thing, we just use the greater than symbol. And if we want to go a step further and actually check greater than or equal to and less than or equal to, we can. Because if a and b are the same, and we check less than, for example, we get false being printed out because they are not actually less, like a is not less than b, it's technically the same. So if we have a less than symbol and we put an equal symbol after it, this says less than or equal to. Now when I save, you see we get true because a is less than or equal to b. Do the same thing by swapping our less than symbol for a greater than symbol, and now we have a greater than or equal to b. We save, we get true being printed out. Now let's move on to doing string comparisons instead of number comparisons, because that's pretty much all the number comparisons you need. So we'll have a string a equal to a, and we'll have a string b equal to b. And we just want to check is a equal to b. So we again use double equal, and we put b. We save, and of course we get false because a and b are not the same. But we can just swap this variable b to be equal to a, and now a and b have both the same value, and we save. We get true because they both equal the exact same string of a. If this was ABB and this was ABB, again, we get true because they're the exact same string. Let's go back here to just A, and we'll have B for B. That way we have false for this. And just like when we did with numbers, we can do that same trick for not equal. So as we can see, A and B are not equal to each other. We click save, and it's going to give us true because A and B are not equal. While when we did double equals, then of course we got false since A and B are not equal to each other. And when we check if they're equal, that is obviously false. And what if we want to check greater than or less than? I mean, that seems kind of weird, but there's actually merit to it. Let's just check if A is less than B. And you're going to see that we get true being printed out. And the reason for this is because it sorts things alphabetically. So A, being the first letter of the alphabet, is like the lowest. While Z is the last letter of the alphabet, it is essentially the highest value. So B comes after A, so B is greater than A. If we swapped this around and we asked is A greater than B, we're going to get false because A comes before B in the alphabet, so it is not greater than B. The exact same thing happens with greater than or equal to. We change both these to A, and we do less than or equal to. You can see this is true. And we can do greater than or equal to, and it'll be true because they are actually equal to each other, so both of those scenarios are true. Now, Booleans are luckily a lot simpler than strings or numbers because you really only can check equality. We have A equal to true, B equal to false, and we want to check if A is equal to B. Obviously, we're going to get false returned because true is not equal to false. We change B to be true. Now they're both the same, so it prints out true. Or if we change them both to be false, again, they both have the same value, so true gets printed out. There's no less than, greater than, less than, equal to, or greater than equal to worry about, because booleans can only be true or false, so all you can do is check to see if one boolean is directly equal to another boolean. Or of course, we could check for not equal. So if we say this, we're going to get false, because false is not equal to, or false and false are equal, so not equal returns false. If these are different though, false and true are not equal to each other, so this not equal will return true to us. Let's just swap that back to how we had, so we can see if we had two of the same value and double equals, we're going to get true. So that's all we need to do with booleans. Let's move on to null and undefined. So we're going to set A to null, and we're going to set B to undefined. And let's check if A equals B. You would think this would return false, but actually when we save this, it prints out true. And the reason for that is because null and undefined both kind of represent the exact same thing. They represent the lack of a value, something that does not have any value. So when we check, does the lack of a value equal the lack of a value, it returns true, because they both, like I said, essentially mean the exact same thing. This is of course going to work the same for null equal to null, that returns true. And if both of these were undefined, just like this, again, if we save that, you see true gets printed out because both of them are the same, undefined or null, for example. And it doesn't matter how much you mix and match them together, they're always going to be true as long as it's either null or undefined. Now, very similar to everything else, we have the not equal to trick. So we can say undefined not equal to undefined, and it's going to return to us false. If we were to change one of these to null, and we save, you're going to see we also get false. And again, that's because null and undefined both kind of have the same value of not being anything. So even though null and undefined are technically different, when we're checking here with the not equals, they're considered the same, which is why this gives us a false result. And then again, if we had null for both of them, we of course get false. And if we go back to undefined for both of them, again false. And when we check equals, we're going to get true. And that's all there is to comparing all of these different variable types. It's fairly straightforward. The important thing though is just to remember to use this double equals instead of the normal equals, otherwise you're going to get weird problems. Because for example, if we put A equals B, you're going to see we get undefined being printed out here. And that's because it's redefining A to be equal to B. Just remember, you need to make sure you use those double equals, and you'll make sure you get those true false values being returned. Now in the next video, I'm going to take a look at something called the garbage collection, which is how we're able to create all these variables without running through all of the memory inside of our computer. So I can't wait to see you in that video.